You are listening to the Intelligent Racer Podcast, where we look to educate and entertain the endurance racing community through discussions with racing professionals and elite age groupers.
Today I'm joined by professional runner Max King. He's an extremely accomplished runner, including such accolades as winning the 2014 100K World Championships. We talk briefly about that race experience and also talk about his experiences this season at Comrades and the Leadville 100. He shares some really interesting stories and information, as well as good injury prevention tips, recovery tips, and other running tips. So it's really worth a listen. Hope you enjoy. So Max, welcome. How you doing today?
Good. How are you? Good.
So why don't we start off and just walk me through your running background. How'd you get started in running? How long have you been running?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a long story, and I don't want to bore you with all the details, but I mean, I've been running for over 20 years now, since seventh grade, and it's always kind of been a part of my life, part of what I do, and everything all the way through, high school, college, post-collegiate, and stuff. I started getting more interested in trail running and stuff right around 2008 or so. And I'd always been a kind of a trail runner and always run trails and stuff. But the idea of that you could actually kind of make it work as a professional athlete kind of started around 2008 or so. And, obviously it's not very easy to kind of make it work as a professional trail runner, or even a professional runner for that matter. And so I kind of had to make a lot of pieces kind of fit together in order to allow that to happen. And so it kind of came together, 2008, I ran my first ultra, and I started running more trail races around that time, kind of in earnest, and seeing kind of how, what the competitive landscape was and how things worked and all that stuff in trail running. And then, around 2011 or so, I quit my real job, which was as a chemical engineer at a small research firm, and basically, was at that point relying on professional running and working at a running store, and that was kind of the two pieces that fit together that allowed me to kind of take on that sort of lifestyle. And I'm lucky I've been able to kind of do that ever since. And it always takes a pretty big effort of trying to piece things together to actually make it pencil out. And a lot of people, I think that it's just kind of you start running well and you become a professional athlete and you're sponsored and it's all fun and games and easy. But it's a lot more than that. And it's it's just a lot of effort. And it's a job in and of itself to keep everything going and to maintain the kind of lifestyle that you want to and still have everything work out. So.
Cool. So obviously following your passion is amazing, but as you said, it's not the easiest road followed always, right? So, it's definitely a challenge, but absolutely envious of it. I work in a cube most of the day, so I'm envious. If I take a step back in your career and sort of look at some of the things that stood out to me, I mean, there's so many accomplishments and really great races you've had, but one that really kind of stuck out to me was the 100K World Championships that you won. And would you mind just kind of sharing that experience at a high level, what that race was like, and also just from a mental perspective? The 100K is a tough distance to race in a world championship setting with other, amazing world-class athletes around you. And how do you handle that kind of the mental aspects of something that challenging?
Yeah. I mean, and that one is so different, from anything I'd ever done. And I think that was going into a part of my success there was having no expectations, not knowing how I was going to do stacked up against guys who, there's very little information a lot of times about these guys that are running that kind of distance and stuff. I mean, they're great athletes, great world-class athletes. They can run fast, but the road at the ultra marathon road distance doesn't get all that much respect. But these guys are good. There's just nothing out there about them. And so going into the race, it's kind of well, I have no idea what my competition is. I don't know, what to expect. I've never run against these guys before because they've never really run trails, and they've never run, some of the other bigger races and stuff. So that was interesting going into it, not knowing anything about how it was going to go, how I was going to do. And so I kind of just, trained how I thought I needed to train, and went in just thinking, well, I'll see how it goes. I'll try to be, top 10 or so, or maybe top 5 if I'm lucky, and try and position myself and be really relaxed and run my own race. And that's exactly kind of what I did. And, I knew going in also that it was going to be insanely boring because it was a 5K loop. So we were doing 20 loops of this course that had like 380-degree turns on the loop. So it was a pretty rough course, and so it was just kind of like you kind of take it as it comes, and you run it, you get through it, and after a couple laps, you're kind of running around in circles, and you're kind of bored. But at that point, it just becomes about getting the job done, and I think that's some races are kind of like that, where you're not worried about anything other than just getting the job done. In other races, you're there kind of more for the experience, or more for the competition, or more, things around the race or whatever. This was kind of like, going in, like it's a job to do, and that's definitely your mindset and your mental mindset of just getting through it. So.
Yeah. So what is your, I know there's probably not a single answer to this, but what is your thought process when you're dealing with something that's relatively, I guess, boring mentally? Are you just going through sort of a checklist of body mechanics? Are you just focused on kind of breathing patterns? Are you, obviously in mountain running, there's scenery and other things that might keep you distracted a little bit. But when you're doing a loop, I mean, for example, there's actually this weekend in Central Park, I'm from New York City, there's a 60K race that's just this loop that goes around and around. I've never done it, but it seems like mentally just the fatigue of going around the same thing over and over again would be really, really challenging.
I mean, I think it's just kind of like I tend to find that I do really well in the races where I'm going there for one particular purpose, just, get the race over with, do well, and run the best race I possibly can. And there's other races where I'll go for kind of the experience around the race. Like I'm going to a cool area that I really want to see, and I'm going to a course that I really want to run, or wanted to run at some point. At Comrades, the last 2 years that I've run, that was a pretty good example. It's like the first year was kind of like, oh, new experience, like I'm in this huge race and stuff, and kind of it's a new experience all around the race. And then you get in the race, and then you completely bomb because your mind is a lot of other places. And so this year, going into that race, like I'd had the experience of being at the race, so that was kind of out of my mind. I wasn't worried about it, and I was there for one particular purpose, and it was business, and it was getting through the race and doing as well as I could. And I had a great race. And so in the race, I feel like you're more mentally prepared and more mentally focused if you're kind of there for that one particular purpose. And so like that, the 60K in Central Park, you're going around in circles and stuff. And if you're going to run it for an enjoyable race or something, like there's no way that it's going to go well, just because, it's not that enjoyable to run around in circles that many times. But if you're going there for a particular purpose and for, getting a good result, and because you want to see how fast you can run 60K on the road, well, that's different. And you kind of mentally forget about that you're running around in circles. And it's kind of a nice checklist at that point. You can get into a rhythm, and you're going through a checklist on your body or your nutrition or whatever it may be. And it becomes very monotonous, but at the same time, that kind of is a way for you to stay regular and kind of optimize your performance, because you get into a rhythm and you know what's coming.
Got it. That was really good advice. So speaking of the Comrades Marathon, for those not familiar, they alternate directions each year, and so you've done it 2 years in a row. So you've done the up and down years. How was it different, and what did you find more challenging or more interesting from the course layout? Obviously, it's the same course pretty much, but it's one is net up and one's net down. So how did you kind of feel about the differences of the two?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a better race on the downhill year this year, and part of it was for what I just said. It's like, yeah, I was going in for business just to run the race and do well, The uphill year, I kind of bombed on that one. It's not like I couldn't run well at that, but an uphill year for me is going to be more difficult. And for me, the downhill year, this year, it went a lot better, but I also think, overall it's always going to go a little bit better. Just because, I don't know, I've always felt like I'm a runner. And if I can get into a pretty good rhythm, like you can on a downhill year, I don't know, for some reason I just tend to do a little bit better at that. And so the uphill year, it's 6,000 feet of up and still 3,000 feet of down. And so both years, it doesn't really matter. You've still got a lot of elevation change, no matter what, up and down. It just happens to be more overall in an uphill year. So, and it's quite a bit for a road race. And so, like, you've still got to be a good hill runner and be able to do that efficiently. And so that's kind of always going to be like one of my bigger issues, I guess.
Right. And so would you recommend the race, like from a bucket list perspective? I think it's on most, ultra distance runners bucket list. At least it is on some of my friends, and because it's just so legendary. Would you recommend it from an experience perspective? Is it worth the logistics and travel?
Yeah, I mean, totally. Like, it's one of those races that, if you're a runner, it's kind of like, you can say, oh, if you're a runner, you got to do this race. Well, that is the race that if you're a runner, you have to do that race. It's a really cool experience. And it's kind of like the Boston Marathon for the whole rest of the world. And because so many people go, there's about 22,000 people in the race. And I would say about 85 to 90% of those are South African, but there's a huge contingent from just different countries around the world. And, everybody in that country gets into it. The entire country is behind this race. There's so much attention around it and stuff. It's really a cool experience. And so, yeah, definitely if you're a runner and you run marathons or whatever, not even if you run ultras, but if you run marathons, like, it's definitely one of those races you got to do. And yeah, the travel is not easy getting down there. Knowing what to do around the race isn't easy, but trying to make that effort to get into that race it's a really cool experience. So yeah, highly recommend it.
So another race you did this year was the Leadville 100, which is pretty well known 100-miler. And could you just sort of walk us through that experience? Was that a race where you were there for business, or were you there to kind of experience the course? I guess that would be a good first question, since we were referring to that before.
Yeah, no, I mean, this was definitely like, it was business going in, and I really wanted to do well there. And it was kind of going into it, I feel like I had a little bit of pressure on me to try for that course record. That's what a lot of people were talking about. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to kind of go after that course record too. It wasn't like it was just outside pressure or anything, and I got into the race, and even leading up to the race, I was kind of like, well, I just want to see kind of how it goes. I know I can run that pace for a while. I just don't know how long. And, getting into the race, I'm still not comfortable with 100-milers. I mean, I don't know that you ever get comfortable with it, but at least you have more experience and you know what you're doing. And I wouldn't say I'm there yet. And so it's one of those things where I got into the race and felt good and felt like I was super comfortable. But I think I was still running too fast, and running too fast for that altitude. The race starts at 10,000 feet, and the lowest elevation in that race is 9,200 feet. And you go up to about 12,500 twice, up over a big pass in the mountains. And, I think cumulative effect of the altitude and everything just kind of eventually got to me running that fast. And I had a great 80 miles, was through 80 or close to 80 on the record pace. And then, kind of expected, okay, the wheels are going to fall off, but I can just jog it in and still do pretty well. Well, it was like the wheels fell off and I couldn't even jog. I couldn't run, and walking was actually pretty rough. But I managed to walk it in the last 20 miles, and whew, man, it was, that was a challenge. I was definitely walking was all I could do, and even walking got pretty tough at times on the last 20. So, it was a rough race in the end, and one of the harder ones that I've had to kind of push through. But I definitely wanted that belt buckle, and so I kind of continued on and got myself through it.
Right. So in terms of lessons learned, I guess you're saying that if you were to attack it again, it would be as you're going at those highest altitudes to kind of slow down a little bit and then pace differently. Is that kind of the lesson you drew from it?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to know exactly what went wrong, and I don't really know, and I'm throwing kind of all of my guesses out there of like, okay, I think it went too fast. I think it was, the elevation. I don't live at that elevation. I was only up there for a couple of weeks, and so I don't totally know, but those are just my best educated guesses. I think that lessons learned would be, I treat it with a little bit more respect, and look at guys who have been doing it for a long time, and pace off of them, be up at altitude and acclimate to that altitude a little bit longer, and give yourself a little bit more of a chance. Kind of be a little bit more prepared for the course, and know the course a little bit better. That's one of the things, like with a 100-miler, it's tough to know like all 100 miles of the course. But if you can, and the more you can run of the course, the better prepared you're going to be. So, it's kind of a lot of different things kind of combined, and taking your best guess and preparing as best you can for it.
Right. And so question I get often just from people who aren't in endurance sports or people who are and just want to learn more is around nutrition. So in this 100-mile race at Leadville, I mean, what was your nutrition strategy like, and how do you kind of go about nutrition for all your, various races? What is your general kind of philosophy or approach to that?
So I need a lot of calories, first off. And so, my approach to anything less than 100 miles right now, and it's been working really well for me, is pretty simple. It's like gel, water, and electrolytes. And gel, I'm usually taking 3 to 4 gels an hour. Water, I'm taking about 20 to 28 ounces of water an hour, depending on, the temperature and stuff. And then electrolytes on top of that. And for anything less than like 100 miles, it's worked great. That's what I used for the 100K World Championships. That's what I've used for all my 50 milers and stuff. So it's been working really well. When I did Western States 2 years ago, I used kind of the same strategy, and at about 80 miles, whether it's due to just having too much gel or with the heat or what, but my stomach kind of went south. It got all sloshy. I was having a hard time kind of digesting gels and stuff. And, part of it, I feel like I just had too many gels. I eat like 50 or 60 gels that day. And pretty soon your stomach's like, it doesn't want any more gel. And so Leadville, I kind of changed that up and used a little bit different strategy. I was still kind of doing the gels for my general nutrition, but I was also supplementing that with some real food to kind of try to keep my stomach good throughout the entire race. And for the most part, it stayed pretty good. And I had no nutrition issues. My power and everything felt good all the way up until that 80-mile mark. But even at that point, it didn't feel like it was really a nutrition issue. It felt like it was more of a body kind of energy, like body kind of systems and mechanical issue at that point.
Right.
So it was different than just, because I can kind of tell now if I'm getting low on calories and, you're starting to bonk a little bit and stuff. And it totally did not feel like that. So that was kind of different.
Right.
But,
right. So looking forward into, I guess, next year, I mean, what are some of the goals you have or thinking about? I'm sure you're still kind of mulling over and probably have some things still left this year, but what are you thinking about? Are you going to go after some more 100-milers? Are you going to do something else? Or
Nope. I'm kind of taking a step back and shortening it up a little bit. That was one of the things after, the last 2 years. 2 years ago, last year, I guess, I did a lot of 50-milers. This year, did a couple of 50-milers plus the 100-miler. And I don't know, I mean, my body feels tired after doing those kinds of distances and stuff. And so next year, I kind of want to take a step back, shorten it up a little bit. I want to do some more of the bigger mountain races and stuff. And so I'm going to be doing some of the sky runs around the world, shorter 25 to 50K distance stuff, and just kind of training specifically for those mountain runs, trying to get better at hills, trying to get better at climbing, and doing a lot of those just for part of it, the enjoyment of them. I just enjoy those types of courses a lot better, even though, a lot of times I'm doing better on something that's a little bit flatter. But yeah, just having some fun at the big mountain races and stuff and shortening it up. It's going to be fun.
Do you have an all-time favorite venue or location, a race that you just absolutely love and either would want to go back to or just would recommend for people to go to?
Yeah, like people have asked me that, and they always ask me that. It's always really tough because I don't really have a favorite race. It's like every race I go to is completely different, and it has its own unique feel to it. And I do better at some races, and I do worse at other races. And I really don't have like my favorite race or anything, just because they're all so different. There's a couple races that really speak to me in terms of like the course. Like I want to go back to Zagama this year, which is in Basque region of Spain, and it's a course that's just spectacular. It's a sky run, and so I think it's got like 8,000 feet of elevation gain in a marathon. But it's just a spectacular course because it's a natural loop. It goes up over 3 mountain peaks and then back down to this little Basque village, and super cool, And so there's races like that kind of speak to me of like, oh, that's a cool race, and I really want to do it. And the Rut in Montana, that's another one I get to do this year. That's kind of one of those of like, oh, it's such a cool race because you go up over this huge mountain, and you're racing up over this huge mountain and then back down, and so that's it's cool. And so there's definitely those kinds of courses that are cool and speak to me a little bit. And, those are they're all over the place. And, it's hard to narrow that down, when there's so many cool areas of the world that you get to explore and stuff. So.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time. I guess I'll end with one final question, and it's actually kind of a boring but important question. I don't usually like to end with this one, but it's something that I want to ask, and a lot of people always ask me when we talk about endurance athletes is, you obviously run significant distances. How do you keep yourself healthy and not have overuse injuries? And do you have any recovery tricks?
Yeah. Well, so, and that's a long answer too. Just because, like, first, I'm really lucky in my genes, I guess, my biomechanics and stuff. They're real sound. They're good. But I definitely have to do a lot, especially as I'm getting older and stuff, to kind of stay on top of that recovery, stay on top of, the overuse injuries and stuff. And I would say probably the most basic thing that you can do that kind of helps is like rolling, stretching, and like physical therapy exercises, the basic exercises that you need to do in order to keep your body functioning correctly biomechanically. And it's boring and it's tough, and you go out for a run, and that's kind of the last thing you want to do when you get back is, in your busy life, is like sit down and roll things, because it seems so mundane. But I think in terms of staying healthy, it's probably, one of the biggest things that you can do is just doing a little bit of strength work, and rolling and taking care of your body after you've gone out and beat it up. And so, yeah, I think staying healthy is hard, but those are the things that you can do. They're easy things that you can do to kind of keep it rolling. And then as far as like important other things, definitely like for runners, especially like ultra runners, a strength program, even if it's a basic strength program, is really important. It's just going to help you stay biomechanically sound and give you enough strength that you can get through your longer runs. And I think that's part of the thing that people don't really understand, is that running really doesn't give you the strength to run. And I've said that for years and still believe that. It's like, yeah, running gives you the fitness in order for you to run a little bit further, but it never really kind of strengthens your body. It always kind of tears it down. And so if you can do some strength on the side, it's going to help you to stay biomechanically sound longer on those long runs and long races and stuff. And so that's an important piece of it.
My triathlon coach is going to love hearing what you just said, because I'm right now in sort of the off season, but going through this kind of what I would say mundane but important strength, glutes, hip flexors, legs, all that kind of stuff that I don't necessarily want to do, but I know it's going to pay off and is important. So that's definitely rings true, and it's something that I know is really important.
Yeah, it is for sure. And then, the recovery side of things after these races and stuff, that stuff's pretty simple, but if you don't know what to do, then it's, it can seem like a world away, but it's, just getting off your feet, putting your feet up. Compression, especially active compression after a race, really helps blood flow get back into your muscles and stuff, and starts to kind of flush them out a little bit. Eating, just your eating habits after a race, like just eating within the first 30 minutes of training, like a training long run, a workout, or a race, is huge. Getting those glycogen stores back up. Your daily diet can help with recovery on a daily basis. Just eating healthier and stuff is going to help you recover faster from all of your workouts each and every day. Those sorts of things. Rolling is a huge piece of recovery. Just helping you kind of keep those muscles kind of almost like lubricated, I guess you could say, but in the right order, and keeping them functioning correctly, and keeping the knots and scar tissue and stuff out of there. So just the little things, little things you do, the details. That's what people always talk about in terms of people who are elite runners or champions and stuff. Is just those little details. It's the big work that comes, and that's what you want to do, but it's all those little details on the side that people don't want to do that actually is what makes the difference. So.
Right. That's really, really good advice. Thank you for sharing that. So, Max, thank you so much for your time today, and it's really valuable to learn some tips and tricks and hear about some of your races and things. So really appreciate it, and I'm sure the listeners are really going to enjoy listening to it. So thank you so much.
Cool. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Intelligent Racer podcast. For more information on this and other episodes, please visit www.intelligentracer.com. Also, be sure to check us out on social media, and please review us on your podcast directory. Join us next time for another edition of the Intelligent Racer.